Do things because you enjoy them. Guys, I've been learning a lot lately about sense of attachment to things, and I've been feeling my energy fluctuate a lot depending on if I am gripping or not to the thing that I'm doing. What I'm learning is if I go towards something without hoping too much from it, joy could just come out as a result. And I say this, for example, I quit coffee. I've been drinking cacao in the morning. And I was first introduced to cacao as an intention setting sort of medicine. And I've been noticing that some mornings I feel like I need it. And on those mornings, it's a caffeinated substance. It's not as strong as coffee. It seems to give me more of a clean energy, energizing. However, I still get that crash in the day if I drank it that morning, really because I felt like I needed to wake up. But on the days that I brew that stuff up and serve it up, just because the whole time I'm thinking about the love that I could have made it, the enjoyment that I'm gonna have when I have this with my breakfast or whatever it is, whatever the situation, then that cacao, I don't feel the jitters. The energy is a subtle one. I just feel kind of there, present, and joyous. And I think this is a small example for all things in life. And so I want to tie this back to gratitude, because I'm also starting to learn that gratitude is really the way to program everything that you see with a bit of joy. You start small and you go to bigger and bigger things. The other day I was writing my gratitude list, and I woke up super early, 4 a.m. I decided, screw it. I'm going to get up. I'm going to start my practices. I slept well. I fell asleep really early, 8 o'clock. I was shattered. 4 a.m. I was like, even an hour earlier than I hoped to. I'm just going to go into it. And instead of worrying about my routine, what exactly do I want to start with, I just thought, I want to dance this morning. I want to dance myself into waking up today. Then I did a bit of Wim Hof. And for the first time in a while, I wanted to do a cold shower. I hadn't done one in a week or so. And you know what? All felt amazing. The reason I'd stopped taking the cold showers is because my body wasn't resonating with it. And it wasn't giving me the same. I've been doing cold showers in the morning for about 2 years. It didn't give me the same resonance as it was before. I realized that it was part of my habit to grip. It become part of what I needed to feel accomplished. And I mean, by all means, if you guys do this every morning and you know without a doubt, you love it, and I'm starting to feel ready to get back on it again, then do it. Do it from that place. I did it for 2 years. It was a great experience. I did it every morning. I would suggest it to anyone because it really teaches you relation to sensation. It really teaches you a relationship to how much pain you really need to consider. But it's a very masculine energy. And so I would say consider where you are at the moment. It's not for everyone. If you're someone who having a too high masculine energy and not enough of a knowing how to just sit back and give yourself a bit of ease, then maybe allow yourself that. Guys, so my story started when I was 14. I lost my dad. A freak heart attack. He came back home from playing golf one day, and he just lay down in the bed, never got up, had a stroke. And this guy was, out of his friends, was known as one of the healthiest of the bunch. I remember one of his friends spoke at his funeral and said, a week ago, we had a meeting on the 4th floor of this such and such building, and Holly was the only one out of us who got there to the top first and looked at us like he could have done another 3 flights of stairs, was surprised we were out of breath. So, just boom, out, one day, gone. And I I used to do this thing where, for most of my decisions that were important to me in my life, where I wanted to study, what I wanted to study, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I would, because I was sent to boarding school before my dad passed away. I was sent to boarding school at the age of 13. And even starting then, I would weigh up the pros and cons of the thing being suggested to me by an adult figure or an authority figure or, whatever, someone I should look up to for advice. And if the pros outweigh the cons, I just couldn't argue with it. And I would just go through with it. And I think this was my modus operandum for a long time. Because after my dad died, my mom was a bit controlling. And at times where I really wanted to take time to make up my own mind, my mom didn't think it would be the kind of thing that my dad would have allowed. So she didn't let me, and I didn't fight for it, to be honest, because already, I didn't know how to make my own decisions. I just had, and so as a result, I went through life creating routines of deep control around whatever it was I was doing without really knowing if I wanted to do it. And this is why I want to come back to my cacao. And I thought it was a great analogy to start this with. Have it because you know you're going to enjoy it. Especially if you got the routine stuff down. Like, I think I went through 10 years of gym routines. And then that went on to meditation and yoga and breath work. And now, I've kind of done it all under the sun. I've gone fat adaptive, intermittent fasting. I've done water fasts. And for a while, I was doing all that stuff intensely because I didn't know what I wanted for myself. But I just knew that I wanted to feel better. I don't know if that sounds familiar to anyone. So I would also say, guys, if you want to do one of those things, do it. And know that all change comes through like true conditioning. I'm going to link this to the fact that our neural pathways in the brain open up when we face anxiety. And these are all great methods by which to create or to let yourself sense what it is to condition yourself into a new way of being. And when you do that for long enough, you start to change your cravings, et cetera, et cetera. So have a goal with the conditionings you're starting to do. And even if you don't know what they lead to, start with them and get a sense of, the scope, the spectrum of what these things will bring you in your life. But in the meantime, don't forget to do things out of joy once you've mastered them. Remember that you can bring that into your wheelhouse. That's another technique you have, whether it be meditation, chanting, yoga, kundalini yoga, breath work, jogging, basketball, whatever the sport is, unless you want to be a professional at it. Remember that these can become tools that you can cycle through to get you to what you want. Because I used to uphold these things over the things that I really wanted. I used to need to make sure I went to the gym to feel adequate to get my acting done. And the gym was a big one. I used to base my self-worth on it rather than feel the joy that I get to go and do this, and I get to feel this way as a result of it, and I get to get this release, and I get to get this space from everything else. My cousin, he's a gym buff, but he calls it his temple, and I know when he's there that he's relaxing. He wants nothing else. He's built that into his little safe haven, and it works wonders for him. It's not a vanity thing anymore. So if you're getting to a certain age where you're realizing you're not getting enough done, maybe you need to let loose on the things that actually you need to prove to yourself don't really equate to your worth. That you're just as worthy without. And sometimes that means just kind of letting go of the rock that makes you feel comfortable and drifting out to sea a bit and realizing you're still over shallow waters. You're still yourself, and you're still going to be loved for who you are. And this is one for a lot of the guys out there. So I think this is, they call it masculine energy for a reason, and I think it's more of a masculine thing. And I wonder, as a heterosexual man myself, it's a guy who likes women I think a lot of this stuff, it was because I wanted to be enough for women around me, but it was kind of in a cheap sense, guys. And remember, law of attraction: like will attract like. So you don't have to be majorly successful on all this stuff to attract the right partner, but at least be comfortable with yourself. And sometimes that means coming away from the thing that you've built up as a crutch to feel enough for the women around you, for anyone around you to accept. Remember, guys, vanity can be a crutch. Because the beautiful thing about being a man, and this is the beautiful thing I think about women, and this is why they're such pure and perfect beings, really, is that they are way more attracted. Well, maybe this is not, I can't prove this, but because I don't know, I think maybe men are as well, but we don't allow ourselves to admit it. They're way more attracted to authenticity. They're way more attracted to a guy who's just self-resigned and knows himself and is comfortable with himself and is not afraid to do what he is really drawn and gravitates towards. So really, guys, the most you can do to attract the right partner is to work on yourself. And if that means taking time to be alone with yourself, do that. Figure who you are out. Notice, as I said in other videos, guys, a perfect way to find out who you really are is to listen to what your body's telling you. And this has taken me years to figure out. After many injuries, because of straining, because of the control around something that actually wasn't allowing me to love myself, it was allowing me to feel enough for others. And it became a crutch, even if it was working out, even if it was working out really in a balanced way, working out and stretching and eating right. But sometimes I'll work out instead of doing that thing that would let me sleep better that night because I could just feel more accomplished, more in a direction, more safe, more setting my roots, more setting my foundation, more supported by myself. And this is a painstaking process, guys. And there's not many people out there really letting us know the map of how it all works. Because, well, frankly, because the information wasn't really first-hand knowledge when our parents were growing up. So it's important, there's a life coach everywhere nowadays. You throw a stone and you hit a life coach. And you throw a stone to a crowd of people and you're going to hit a life coach. However, I think that's a good thing because tribe is now disassembled. We don't have elders. We don't respect grandparents the same way we used to. It used to be the grandparents that raised the kids, and it used to be the grandparents that raised the kids because really, to have that grand overview, what it's like to be human, you had to be consciousness in a vessel that had lived for that long. Think about your grandparents. Grandfather, he's not worried about fucking bitches, excuse my French. He knows whether he's failed it or not. He knows what it is like to be a man. He knows his regrets. He knows his successes. He knows what didn't matter. He knows what love is. He knows what beauty is. He knows what life is really worth. And same with grandmothers. This is why it's important to let people age. I had this revelation one day on a medicine journey with mushrooms. And I realized, and this was a really archetypal realization. That's a very vulnerable moment for me to share that. So here I am expanding for you guys. I had this very archetypal realization where, I was thinking about, I'm very into psychoanalytical jargon. And psychoanalytical jargon draws a lot from like Greek gods and polytheistic religions. And I was realizing, it just clicked one day, if we didn't age, we'd be as old and as powerful as when we're old, we'd be as powerful as the gods, but we'd also be as petty as the gods. If we didn't have certain urges that kind of just, and that would be the worst thing ever. Like, I'm 34 now, and I look at 20-year-olds, I kind of got to remember tolerance. I kind of got to go, oh, yeah, I was I was like that at some point. I gotta believe I was like that at some point. But you know when you appreciate a mature younger person, and it's also super impressive. Even it's like, wow, you got this stuff way before I did. Good for you. And then the rest are like, oh, this is what you guys are into. Oh, well, I guess youth will be youth. Grandmothers are way more soft and gentle towards that stuff. I think grandfathers, that's a man thing. It's like, ugh. So that kind of, I guess, male competitiveness is still there. And the female sense of just loving stories and loving personalities and really noticing people is also still there. But, yeah, you imagine 80-year-olds who are still like 25-year-olds, the world would be a circus. We would be a dangerous species. We're just perpetual children. And that's why the inner child is something that needs to remain the same no matter what age we get to. Because that pure inner child, like that inner child that exists in an 80-year-old, that is actually coming back. You'll be a child twice in your life, early stages and the dying stages. That is coming back to realizing what's infallible in consciousness. It's realizing that you are just being in a vessel. And the rest is concerns about your material self. The rest is ego. So guys, I want to bring this back to do things because you enjoy them and gratitude. Make your cacao in the morning because you just love the way that cacao tastes and feels with your breakfast. And when you start to notice that you think you just don't feel good without it, maybe go for a walk that morning. Maybe cycle through something else. Your body will tell you. This morning I woke up, didn't sleep like I did last night. Usually I would just force myself to do yoga. I went for a walk. I came back with 10 ideas. My body just go for a walk. Go for a walk. Go for a walk. I came back with 10 ideas for videos. I was so inspired. I was like, okay. Yeah, this can be easy. Because my body's already solving for me what I want. My subconscious is already solving for me what I want. And going back to gratitude, when you're doing those gratitude lists, when you're practicing meditation, when you're doing something like yoga that brings you back to being, when you're going on long walks, when you're grounding, when you're going and putting your bare feet in the grass, you are sending your brain signals. You're implanting experiences into your subconscious that are linked to your inner child, really. Just like I described before, to that sense of being, to that infinite sense of self, the same energy that's in everyone that makes them switch on, to that core that is common in us all, our common isolation, I used to call it. But now it's like our common liberation, I truly believe, this is why I say you throw a stone in a crowd and you hit a well-being coach. Guys, so many jobs are obsolete nowadays. What the hell are we doing with them? It's when we are not living in a society, if we're not progressing technology and stuff to emphasize our inner child, we're taking ourselves away from doing things because we enjoy them, and we're taking ourselves away from the innate wisdom of the body that just is going to solve things for us if we listen to it, feel like we have the time, don't have too many thoughts in our head for or against it, confusing us, and feeling like it's safe to follow yourself. And that means everybody noticing that will make it easier. The moment I want to have friends that when I go, my intuition is saying da 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 da, unless their intuition is really contesting that, then there's probably a truth that needs to coincide. But they can go, yeah, I wasn't attached to this. It wasn't my intuition. It was just how to spend this moment here. If your intuition is saying that, I fucking love you. Go do your thing, homie. Go solve whatever it is your brain's trying to solve. And, can't always ask for that. That's a bit easy. You got to parent yourself eventually. To follow it in yourself. At some point, you will be tested. You will have to defy someone to instate your truth. And coming back to what I was saying earlier about those crutches guys, mostly men, maybe women too. This would be great for us to have in common. I know my perspective. I know my experience of life. So I know more surely for me, I would love to have women out there talking about this. This is another thing I think about. Is, I went to university. Well, let me finish my thought first. Guys, work on yourself, and that will attract the right person. And the right person might be the person you reject in that moment. But in order to work on yourself, because women will respect that. And that's why women are perfect. Because really all they ever want is, like, if we are just being ourselves, you will attract them. And you be interested in something. Have a passion. If you don't like who you're attracting, find out more about yourself. Do a bit of inner work. But as I was saying, this is a side note, and I don't really know how relevant it is. But I think about it a lot. So this would be one of those things, please, in the comments, if you want to elucidate and blow my mind, please do. But, at uni I did, so I studied drama and theater arts. I did an elective on feminist playwrights and feminism. Because when I was younger, I used to feel like, I used to hear all these debates about the differences between men and women. And I was always, I had a very particular upbringing. My dad died when I was 14. I went over that. And who took his place was my psychiatrist, in a sense, unwittingly. So psychology took his place. So I gripped onto that and wanted to be a good student. I was a voracious student. Somebody correct me with that. And so I was just taking in all this stuff, and I had a weird brain. It would just start to click, and I would just live by things that wanted to fit in, that slotted in there nice and easy. And this is why I really like the Alan Watts analogy, that there's no new learning. It's all just remembering, because if you hear it for the first time and it makes sense right away somewhere, you kind of knew it. So I feel like I went through a phase of remembering. But that's another story. But so I went through life with this scope of understanding, depression, what true vulnerability looks like, what true strength looks like. And I think it kind of trumped gender roles to a certain extent. So I was very good at understanding my girlfriends. I didn't have all these blocks. And that's when I started to feel like, the difference is what society lets you express these things by. They're not quintessential differences. I think there are tendencies for behavior. It's a mixture for me. I'm on the fence. I do believe, I listen to the intellectual dark web guys, the anthropological, the evolutionary biology train of thought about, the women are more naturally locked into people and stories, and men more naturally, but there's always exceptions. It's on a scale, but the large majority, and it's on a bell curve, and this is why fluid gender is fluid, because there's always an exception to the rule, just like any rule in life. Life has a poetic license that is the scope, and there are the edges of even the life, even collective psyche. But let me, before I go off on one, that men are more attracted to tools and things. And that's why, and I use the Jordan Peterson example, although it might be contentious. That's why, for example, he takes the example of Sweden, where there's been, the way they set up laws has been to encourage, to the best of their knowledge, scientific knowledge, psychological knowledge, to encourage freedom of choice and healthy expression of self. And so there's a lot of social care. There's a lot of, everybody's entitled to higher education. Everybody's entitled to every education that will lead you to the open to doors for any career. And still, like 90% of engineers end up being men, and 90% of nurses end up being women. And I've heard other claims by evolutionary biologists that and this starts in like high school, that and here's the funny part. So women, this is to prove that I'm not digging on any sex, that and this is also kind of shows women are smarter, that the trend is that boys who are better at maths, like the boys who are top set of the boys in maths, are mostly good at maths. The women who are top set of the class of the girls in maths tend to be equally as good in language disciplines, and they just tend to veer more towards linguistic, creative avenues. Although that might be changing, and it might be changing because of representation. It might be changing because everybody kind of wants to mold who they are against idols that are out there in society. And I am starting to believe that has a huge effect. And I am starting to believe that as much as I do believe in a meritocracy, that in any case we're going through an evolution of the masculine and the feminine. And we're going to start to realize which parts of those are just society oriented. And as long as there's more scientists being represented in the female world, there might be more minorities in leading roles, intelligent roles. They might have more role models who, to take the stereotypical movies always cast African American or black people as drug dealers, gangsters, etc., criminals. Less kids into being like thug rap-esque and whatnot, because they have other role models to see to cling to, because we all like role models that we can relate to. And the first thing that we can relate to is an identity. Yeah, that's the first thing most of us tend to relate to. Oh God, I have thoughts about that too. In another YouTube episode, maybe. This is like the back and forth of identity politics. It's light and shadow aspect. I believe all things have a light and shadow aspect, but this was intended to be a YouTube episode about gratitude and about doing things because you enjoy them. But I think it's all linked back to that. I think our bodies have a plan. The gender fluidity is or what we consider linked to genders is kind of crossing over, and we're starting to learn, and I think we're going to start to learn that it's all a programming of the subconscious. And if there's tendencies in masculine and feminine, well, maybe it has been throughout the animal kingdom in order to reach the human stage. And now that we're humans and we can observe ourselves, and we can have issue with a lot of things that I think are residue from our very primal stages of being. It's going to start changing. And we have female MMA fighters who anyone who's a professional, probably even pseudo-professional, could kick my ass. And most guys I know is asses. I'm going to try and keep a through line on this one. I'm quite enjoying it. I hope you are. But, yeah. So, the subconscious and listening to the body. So that's why, guys, program gratitude into all the little things that you do. Do that gratitude list. Do that exercise of being, so that you get used to really having that intimate relationship with yourself, and so that you get used to scanning your environment without negative thoughts that are projections linked to some kind of victim story that you needed that story to stay protected in a certain area of your life, but it no longer serves you. You need to stay protected from being empathetic with someone who is actually not a nice person to you, so you can know how to put up boundaries. And then later when you get away from them, you go, oh, but that human suffered from this and this and this, and actually they were a person just trying to do their best, and they didn't have this and this and this information, and they only had access to this much of love for themselves, and they could only, without anxiety, face these many things in life. And they were doing their best, and they were actually evolving a lot, but they had all these uphill battles. And it's going to be easier for my generation. It's going to be easier for all future generations, because parents tend to have kids at the point of, like, in accordance to what they've undone, what work they've done in themselves. That's why it's important that actually mental health be upheld with most people for the sake of their future generations. Because, you know, someone might be a sociopath, like grandmother might be a sociopath because she grew up in Siberia, and she was wild out there. People were ruthless. Maybe not Siberia, but parts of Russia, I don't know, I imagine. Somalia, pirates, you know, tough society to live in. People are genitally mutilating people, you know, wherever it might be tough for a woman. And then that pain lets her not be able to offer that pain to her daughter, because she wouldn't have offered it to herself, no matter what, how much her brain's shut down from empathy as a survival mechanism. And the generations later, that person's actually super strong, super resilient, and not suffering from as much trauma as they were before. Learning compassion, every making compassion safe, generation by generation. So guys, gratitude for those who have that privilege to take time in the morning to write it in a journal. That things are so good, they're living in the Western world, no matter what job you have. Even if you're not accomplishing your dreams, it's the journey, right? It's not the end. It's not the where you reach at the end. It's the journey, not the goal. Start with every day loving yourself, every day loving things around you. Start with the journey. Start with the journaling. Start with the fact that you can work on yourself. Find a coach out there, because most jobs are obsolete. Most jobs are just generating money for the sake of generating money. And some people who are doing that, that's fine, because that was the measure of success for a long time. But we're wiser than that. We know what's contributing positively to the planet and what's not contributing positively to the planet. And studies are showing that true altruism is way more fulfilling inside than just a sense of success. It's a higher level of consciousness. And you'll have more access to love. And actually things will open up more easily towards you, because our sense of oneness kind of rewards that. That's what I think the laws of manifestation is. It's all one big thing, guys. It's all one big thing. That's why I have a hard time keeping one track in a lot of these episodes. But please listen to more. If there's a part of what I'm mentioning that has a title in another YouTube video that I've done, listen to that one. And then I'll probably tie in a minute sense what I've said in this one and expand in a large sense what I've said in the other one. But yeah, so the more you program a bit of gratitude into the things that you're scanning for, because the brain scans for functionality, the more you won't scan for threats or interpretations that are linked to past pains, and the more you'll scan for the minute of just, oh, I really like the way my skin feels. Oh, I really like having a good hair day. I really like how my cacao tastes in the morning, or my coffee. I really like the color of my mahogany table. Oh, man, it was such an achievement to buy that. I got some plants in my room. I'm so happy about the plants in my room. I love plants. I needed plants in my room for a long time, and I finally got them. Oh, and I finally... I love my new backpack. I love how it feels to breathe, because I practice it and I pay attention to it for so long, and I realize like how powerful that actually is and how many things it's linked to, and it's kind of offered me a superpower at this point of being able to reset to parasympathetic nervous state, letting my heart shine through. I have an episode on the heart right before this one, guys. Watch it. It's pretty good. And yeah, the more you do that, the more it won't be a struggle, because you'll have put so many positive stories into so many things around you, build from the small to the big, that you'll have memories of the gratitude you imbued that thing with. And more, you won't mind listening to the heart. Or maybe you'll be overwhelmed with how many abundant options you have. So the heart won't have to feel so constricted to giving you the choice that'll actually make you feel healthy. All your choices will make you feel healthy. You know? So I think really go for it, guys. Start with the small and just know what you are growing this stuff into. You're getting huge. Hugely spacious, hugely beautiful, hugely... It's not just success criteria, it's evolution criteria, guys. That's why the more coaches there are out there, the better. Especially if the formula includes all these things. The combination of Eastern and Western practices for well-being. And people who are successful and not happy want one of these coaches. These are becoming the elders who are studying the science, who are doing the work on themselves, who are finding success and growing through the exact mediums that I am delineating here, the exact biological. My thing is to push that they are biological processes. I'm trying to demystify. It doesn't have to be magic, guys. It is tangible. It's about time we understand this so that everybody get on board and everybody, we know how to model the future intelligently with more industries of play. Let the robots take all the hard work for us. People who love being engineers will love being engineers because they will love numbers. They will love quantum physics. Nothing else will do it for them like quantum physics. They will love this, hard spaces to excavate in their brains. And those people, God bless them, they're fucking geniuses. But they will not be able to help digging what they're digging. And they will not be able to help needing advice from someone else who can feel more. They'll probably attract that as a lover. And things will just level out, guys. They constantly have been. It's a beautiful time to be alive. It's a beautiful time to be alive. So go become a yoga instructor. Go become a dance teacher. Go do dynamic meditations. Go become an altruistic business entrepreneur. Go work for an alternative school system that encourages kids to put their feet in the dirt, climb trees, grow their primal selves first, let them find out what they really are interested by afterwards, especially if it's maths. Because guys, I didn't really start reading books heavily till I was 18, 20, and most of my friends don't do what I'm doing with information. And what changed it for me drastically, this is why the masculine is helpful to you get to know yourself. What changed it for me drastically is all the meditation, all the biohacking, all the breath work, all the work, having a hobby that I love, plant medicines as well, I won't lie. Psilocybin is amazing for consolidating information. Incredible. But let's have doctors around this. Let's have people who know how to let people come back from these things and integrate. Because that's important, guys. That is super important. And then maybe we'll start to understand the spiritual world isn't something so magical afterwards. Just archetypal figures in our subconscious that we can trust. A waking dream state that can guide us to wish fulfillment in the positive direction, given the fact that our imagination can incept certain fantasies into our brain, and through chemicals can make us kind of feel or see just about anything we want. And maybe they are there. Or maybe it's just us incepting ourselves. And in that sense, your higher self is definitely real. The collective consciousness is definitely real. If you can go to hallucinations every night, your brain definitely knows how to do it even when you're awake. And maybe plant medicines are just kind of loosening the screws to let what we kind of do every day happen anyway, but in a more healthy way. And maybe these are medicines for imaging, waking fantasies. Anyway, guys, there's a lot in that to unpack already. Healer Holly, kicking ass, doing this shit, feeling proud, feeling the love, finding myself, find yourself. If you like this, like. If you want to subscribe, you want to know more, this makes sense to you, subscribe. If you want a reading list, guys, for me, it's not even so much a reading list, it's podcasts and videos. If you want to just be put up to date with stuff like this, there's so many people out there. Joe Rogan, listen to all the scientists he's interviewing. Duncan Trussell Family Hour. Paul Chek. Eckhart Tolle. Alan Watts. Especially if you've had a mystical experience and you don't really know what you just experienced. Find these guys. I've had other shamanic friends, other